Welcome to the Focused and Fearless podcast, the show designed to explore how you can step into powerful self-leadership and stop settling for less in your life, business, health, and wealth. I'm your host, Heather Angel, and as a certified energy practitioner, coach, and online business consultant with over a decade of experience, you can expect expansive, honest, and enlightening conversations about what it really takes to create the changes in your life and business that right now may just feel completely out of reach. Thank you for choosing to invest in yourself by listening to this episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. We all know how important it is to take care of ourselves and exercise regularly. But what does that really look like for us women once we pass the age of 40? In today's episode, I speak with my very special guest, Alix Hubble. She's the founder of ChickFit and the most down-to-earth, no-nonsense fitness coach I have ever met. Now, Alix is a wine-drinking mum of two and holistic core restore coach of the year 2020. What she shares in this episode has really opened my eyes as someone who's been going to the gym since she was 16. It's really opened my eyes to the fact that we need to approach fitness differently as we age. And that doesn't mean letting go of our dreams of how we want our bodies to be. It doesn't mean that we have to hold back on exercise if that's what we enjoy. It just means that maybe the exercises we were doing in our 20s are no longer the kind of fitness routines we should be doing in our 40s and beyond. So if you're looking for clarity on what you should and shouldn't be doing to improve your fitness, this episode is for you. Welcome to the podcast, Alix.
Hi, lovely to be here.
So nice to have you here. And I cannot wait to dive into all the different areas, because when we met the first time and had a chat, we could have talked for hours, because as a woman, just turned 40, I'm like, oh my goodness, my listeners are really going to resonate with so much that we're going to discuss today. So as I said in the introduction, you help women in so many different ways, whether they're sort of just had a baby or they're going through sort of perimenopause. You help them in so many different stages of their life. One thing that really stood out to me is the approach that we take to fitness as women, how we even approach that whole world of diet, nutrition, fitness. What's your stance on it? How do you approach that with your clients?
So I'm probably in the minority, I think, in terms of, some of the ways that I approach this stuff, partly through my own experience, partly through the experiences of my clients and my members as well. Because I think, when I first started out, and I think we spoke about this before, when I first started out as a personal trainer, 9 years ago, and this isn't like my second career. I worked in advertising for 10 years before that as well. So I started this business, 9 years ago. And, I very much was a personal trainer. Yeah, I was in my mid-30s and I just did personal training. Like, somebody called me and said, I would like to lose some weight and I'd like to get fit, come and help me. And I'd be like, okay, fine, let's do it. And then I'd kind of wonder, why are they're amazing for a few weeks and then they just drop off. And, they don't get the results that they should be doing by following this. And they're making some of these changes, but it's not happening for them. And the more that I learned from working with those clients, and the more that I learned from myself as well, actually, the more I started to change my kind of attitude and my approach towards it, which always used to be that sort of, just cut back on the sugar and, the carbs and whatever, and everything will be okay. It doesn't, it just doesn't work like that. I spent many years on diets myself, on it, off it, on it, off it, on it, off it. And I would feel amazing when I lost weight. It would feel just awesome. But of course, it never lasted. Eventually some of that weight will go back on again and you go on another diet and you lose it. And then, and it's this constant like roller coaster, which A, is not very good for you. B, is really frustrating because you never quite reach that place of everything's amazing and I eat like I always was supposed to and everything's fabulous and I work out 5 times a week and it's not a problem and I'm suddenly this motivating person who just does all the things. Life doesn't work like that, and yet we expect ourselves to be like that, and we kind of put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Now that pressure does come from inside, but it's not there for no reason, and it's there because the fitness and diet industry tells us that get the quick fix, get the quick result, lose half a stone in a month. Of course, you can go to the gym 5 times a week. What's wrong with you? We've all got the same hours in the day, and all of those ridiculous, stupid things that people say. And they make it sound so flipping easy. So, of course, then when we don't get the results that they've told us we're going to get, we think, oh, God, something's wrong with me. Why can't I do this? They can do it. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Why don't I feel as motivated as they do? And so we just spend our lives beating ourselves up about it and feeling bad. So over the years, I've developed a very different approach, which is more about being kind to yourself, learning to, and I hesitate to say the word love yourself, because I think people struggle with that. I genuinely think that when we've had a very dicey relationship with ourselves for many, many years, and we've never felt thin enough or small enough or toned enough or whatever, that, the idea of jumping straight to I love myself is almost impossible. So I tend to say being okay with yourself, like accepting yourself as you are, I think is an important part of the journey. And coming from a place of positivity and what can I do, rather than a place of negativity and hating yourself into change, because hating yourself into change does not work. It's miserable, it's hard, you eventually just can't do it anymore because it's all coming from a very, very negative place. So turning my attention more to helping women to be okay with themselves as they are. And I know that sometimes, I'll work with personal training clients particularly, and I can tell that they're just thinking, but I just want to lose weight. I just want to lose weight. I just want to lose weight and everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And I know that I annoy them because I'm sitting there going, no, you need to be okay with yourself first. Right, we need to do that. It's not lose the weight, become confident. It's become confident and okay with yourself. And then you may get the weight loss. You may not, who knows? But if you're okay with yourself, does it matter at that point? So it's a very tricky place to go to. It's a very tricky concept to get get your head around. And it's something I've worked on myself over the years, because I've always, particularly as a fitness professional, I've always kind of thought, oh God, I should be more toned. I should be stronger. I should be, thinner. I should be this, that, and the other. And then I'm like, oh no, actually what my clients and my members like about me is that I'm just normal. Like I'm a normal woman, and yes, I'm somebody who exercises regularly, but I'm a normal woman. So it's coming at it from that approach, like coming at it from that more positive, like what can we add? What joy can we find in it? How can we look at all of the other amazing reasons to eat well and to exercise? How can we empower ourselves with it? So that's really the approach that I come to it from.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. Those last points that you made about feeling empowered from it, because I think certainly in the coaching work that I do, a lot of the clients are, well, when I get to that 5K a month consistently, then I'll be successful. And I'm like, then I'll be happy. And it's like, we do this with food and fitness and our appearance. Oh, well, when I lose that stone, then I can start my life. And it's like, no, we have to, exactly as you said, we have to reverse engineer it. It's like, be happy where you are. But it's so, I'm listening to you thinking, yeah, I'm agreeing with all this, but man, it's hard.
Yeah, it is. And it's really counterintuitive, because you sort of think, but surely I need to be smaller to be more confident. And surely if I am, there's almost that worry with people that they're like, oh my gosh, if I don't lose, if I do this, if I become happy with myself right now, I'm giving up on myself. I'm never going to lose the weight. It's never going to happen. But my take on it is that if you think so negatively of yourself that you're beating yourself up about it, you're punishing yourself with exercise, you're punishing yourself with what you're eating, then you are always going to fall off that wagon. You're always going to feel bad about yourself. And you're not going to treat yourself very well. Whereas if you come at it from the point of view of, actually, I'm okay with myself, maybe not love yourself yet, but I'm okay with myself and I'm okay with what I see in the mirror, then you're more likely to treat yourself well. And when you treat yourself well, you're probably going to lose some of that weight, because you're going to exercise regularly, not because of the way it makes you look, but because it feels good. Yeah. And you're going to eat well, because you're going to think, well, why wouldn't I put good things into my body if I want to treat myself well? So it's that, like, let's be kinder and let's treat ourselves well, rather than let's beat ourselves up for what we are not and wait, be, like you say, waiting around for life to start. And I had a client in my membership the other week who she posted, like, I'd asked them for, what's gone well this month, what has, what are you proud of achieving? And she actually posted, she was like, my gosh, for the first time in absolutely years, I looked at myself in the mirror the other day in my underwear and I was actually okay with what I saw. And she was like, it's an absolute revelation to me. And she's been in that membership for, a year and a half. She's been working on that for a year and a half. And finally, she's like, oh my God, I'm actually okay with myself. Like, nothing suddenly changed. I just looked in the mirror and I was okay. And that's what I want. That's what I want women to feel. I don't want women to feel bad about themselves all the time. I want women to feel good about themselves, and I want to treat themselves well as a result of that.
And I think that's so powerful. I think actually, to be fair, most guys maybe as well, that moment of looking in the mirror and just going, yeah, almost giving yourself a little mental high five and be like, yeah, do you know what? Looking all right. I'm happy with this.
Yeah.
But I think I'd be curious to know how you work with your clients on, obviously you do the training and there's so many things you do with your clients, but on that mindset, because our brains are, tricky things, because even myself, as someone who I've always exercised, always had a gym membership, as soon as I was 16 and I had money, I used that money to pay for a gym membership. I genuinely do enjoy exercise.
Yeah.
And I find that my body may not actually change, but if I haven't been to the gym for 2 weeks, which happened, obviously during lockdown, that sort of thing happened, but, because of half term or whatever, I will look in the mirror and my brain will go, oh, well, you've all gone saggy. It's all gone. It's all gone to hell. And I'm like, I'm not sure. And then all it will take is a few gym workouts. And I'm like, oh, no, I look fine again. And I'm like, really? I know. I probably don't look any different at all. My boyfriend said, you don't look any different. You look exactly the same. I'm like, no. But my brain has told me that after 2 weeks of not going to the gym, everything's gone south. Everything's gone wrong. Yeah, so how do you help your clients with that sort of that mental chatter?
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is it is that sort of sense of, like, I always see, exercising regularly as confidence giving in itself, whether it changes your body or not. It gives you confidence. It makes you feel like you're more able, you can do things, you push yourself to do something that you never thought you could, like push yourself to finally do a press up. Like, every woman I've ever met, I think, has all said, oh, my upper body strength is rubbish, can we just do lower body? I'm like, your upper body strength is rubbish because you don't do it, because you have decided that you are not strong in your upper body, and therefore you avoid doing any upper body exercises. Of course you can't do a damn press up, of course you can't. So I'm like, the only way you're going to do this is by doing it. Yeah. And when they get to that point and they're like, I did a press up, that feels amazing, I never thought I was going to be able to do that. That in itself, like, gives you confidence. Yeah. And it makes you feel capable and strong. And, it's one of the reasons that I lift weights, because it makes me feel bloody good, right? It makes me feel capable and amazing, and it gives me that sense of achievement. And I think we're so often controlled by how we look that we often will finish a gym session, it almost feels like, oh, well, okay, not got the result yet. Whereas you go to the gym and you focus on how did that feel, and you're like, oh my God, that felt amazing, felt so amazing. So I think that's part of it. I think that's some of it, but it's also just getting people to dig down into their conceptions around exercise, their conceptions around their body, and this, pretty much everyone that's ever come to me and I've asked them what their goal is, it's either to lose weight or to tone up or both, or to feel like my old self again. Particularly the new mums will say, I just want to feel like my old self again, for example, or I want to get rid of this tummy. It's all, or most of it is based around how they look. So what I will always do is always encourage them to think about, well, what are the other positives? What are the other reasons that you could do this? and getting them to think about how it's making them feel, how it's benefiting their health, how it's, like I say, how that sense of achievement when you are, lifting something heavy and you have, pushed yourself to do something new. So I just really, really, really encourage people to move away from always thinking about it just as aesthetics, and to understanding, like, how does this make me feel and how is this going to benefit me? And, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't exercise for aesthetics at all, because I do. But whereas, 10 years ago, it was like 80% aesthetics, now it's probably about 20%. The other 80 for me is all about how does it feel when I do it? And how does it feel after I do it? And how is it benefiting my mental health and my, my emotional health and all those kind of things as well. So it's tuning into that, but it's also being patient. This is not going to change overnight. This is not a quick fix. And you're going to have to be patient with yourself and just know that the end goal is feeling okay with yourself and exercising because exercise feels good rather than to look good necessarily. But it takes time. It takes time, and it's going to be a lot of backward steps in that as well, where you're going to be tempted to do that diet or do that quick fix.
Yeah.
You're going to know why you're not going to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful point about how it feels, because that is, again, why I would imagine so many people sort of go, right, I'm going to do this. And they don't see the results, and then they kind of go, oh, well, it's not worked. So it's, if they haven't got that feeling, that emotive, like, oh, actually, no, but do you know what I really love? Exactly what you said. I've managed to lift something heavy. I'm absolutely obsessed with weightlifting. Cardio, it's not my friend. As much, I love doing a weight session because I walk out there and go, yeah. And you can slowly see that progression. And even if you don't see it in the mirror, you see it on the amount you're lifting. And that for me is, that keeps my little mindset monkeys quiet, because it kind of goes, okay, you are progressing. It's fine. You're lifting more. So that's okay. And I'm like, okay, now you can just shush. Can't see it in the mirror just yet, but I know how it's happening.
Yeah, that's just it. It's finding other ways of measuring your progress that aren't just about how you look. Like, it's okay to want to look better. It's okay to want like a more toned bum. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But when that becomes the only reason you exercise, it can be very, very demotivating for you in the long term, because, like you say, you're not going to see that result after a week or 2 weeks or even 6 or 7 or 8 weeks. It might take months for you to look in the mirror and go, oh, actually, that's changed.
Yeah.
It can take a really long time, and it takes some patience to do that. However, one thing you can for sure measure from 1 week to the next, particularly when as somebody who lifts regularly, you'll probably agree with me that, those gains are much harder now. Yeah. You don't like go from one session to the next and be like, oh, I'm lifting more. And that slows down quite a lot. Right. However, in the early days, in those first few months, even first couple of years, you'll find that you go to the gym 1 week and you lift, a 5 kilogram weight. And then 3 weeks later, you go and you lift the 6 kilogram weight and like, oh, actually, that's amazing. And you can gain really quite quickly. And that you're getting stronger because your body is telling you, I can lift more. Yeah. And so, of course, that's going to eventually show through aesthetically. But it's, you're going to notice it through what you're lifting first before you notice it through how you look. So if you can turn your attention to that, and if you can start to recognize, oh, God, actually, I was a bit peed off when I started this gym session. No, I actually feel quite good.
Yeah.
Now I'm everything's all right with the world. And you start to go, oh, hang on a minute. So there are other reasons for me to exercise that aren't just about the mirror.
Yeah, definitely. And, in the high pressure lives that we live in, and I know you work a lot with this with your clients in sort of how to fit it in. And we're going to talk about what exercises to do in a second. But from a stress relief point of view, I can have the worst day and I will just take it out on the battle ropes and I'm like, woo, okay, everything's fine. I can't feel my upper body anymore, but everything's fine. That stress has now gone into the gym rather than necessarily been unleashed onto the kids or my partner or, eating or, wherever else I might have put that energy. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Really.
It's you'll always feel better after a gym session. Like it goes without saying, and you won't want to do it. Everything in your mind is screaming at you, don't do it. Lie on the sofa, drink wine. And you'll be like, I just really want to lie on the sofa and drink wine. But then you go to bed thinking, oh God, okay, I feel a little bit better, but I just vegged out and that's not feeling great. Whereas you go, like, by all means, lie on the sofa and drink wine, do the gym workout first.
Yeah.
When you get on the sofa, you're like, yes, okay, I feel good for this. But yeah, it's always going to relieve your stress. It's always going to do that for you for sure.
Absolutely. So we talked about, lifting heavy things and doing sort of resistance weight training. As, most of my audience are sort of mid-30s upwards.
Yeah.
One of the things we touched on when we first met and discussed having this podcast episode was you said something to me which has stuck with me, that we get older and older and are still trying to train exactly the same as we were when we were in our 20s. So how can women look at their gym routine or, even start a workout and know what's the right sort of exercises for them?
Well, there's lots of different things in this, really. And I think the first thing is that we, in our 20s and 30s, there is a lot of stuff that we can almost get away with, if that makes sense. So we can, I don't know, you go on holiday and you drink too much and you eat too much and you come back feeling really sluggish and a bit heavier and you've got the water weight and all that kind of thing. And it's all feeling a bit blur. And you go to the gym, again, you get back to the gym, get back to eating normally, and it sorts itself out. Like, that was always me. Like, it would all sort itself out. I knew that a couple of weeks back, not making any specific effort, but just being back in my normal routine, everything would sort itself out. A bit of cardio. That doesn't work so well anymore, for a start. Secondly, I think that we, one of the big things for me, so I've just created this perimenopause course. And one of the big things for me in that, the big rocks, is stress reduction, because we're all running around like idiots, being overly stressed, being overly stimulated, trying to do too much. A lot of us buy into this kind of cult of busy and, I must keep up. And so we just allow so much stress into our lives all the time. And then we go to the gym and I don't know, or maybe we go out for a run. We go out for a 60-minute run or something, and then go for a long steady state run. And all our body does is it just pumps out more and more and more cortisol. So even though exercise is a stress release, it is actually adding cortisol, which is our stress hormone, to our system. And long steady state cardio as you get older starts to serve you less. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do, because it absolutely is part of that routine if that's what you want to do. I personally don't do it like you. I've got a bit of an aversion to that kind of stuff. Like, I like lifting my weights and do my HIIT exercises, thank you very much. But if you love that and if it makes you feel good, don't, this isn't me telling you to stop. But what I am saying is you can no longer get away with just doing that, just going, I'm just going to run 4 times a week and that's my thing, that's my jam, I'm going to just keep doing that, because you're missing out on so many other things and you're just adding more and more and more stress to that system, and stress then burns muscle. We don't want to lose muscle. That's the last thing we want to do at this age. So which kind of leads me on to the second part, which is that, from our early to mid-30s onwards, we start to lose muscle. It's not a huge amount to start off with. It's something in the range of 3 to 5% per decade of muscle. But you can imagine if you start losing muscle early 30s, how much have you lost by the time you're in your early 50s? Yeah. Like, actually quite a bit. Cumulatively, it's going to be quite a bit. But that is if you do nothing about it. And the problem is when you lose muscle is that, number one, and this is always the thing that gets everybody, it reduces your metabolism, because your metabolism, it depends on your muscle mass to a large extent. So the more muscle, the more calories your body needs each and every day to stay alive. So that's number one. So when you're like, oh, my metabolism's gone to pot and all I ever do is go running, then you might want to think about adding some strength training and building some muscle. So that's part of it. Part of it is just staying strong and, being able to move with ease. Another part of it is your bone health, like strong muscles and strong bones go hand in hand. So lifting weights, doing impact helps to build bone strength as well. So I could go on. There's lots of other reasons, but building muscle just becomes more and more and more and more important. And I know that lots of people might be thinking, oh God, yeah, I don't want to build muscle, but you do. Like when people come to me and say, I want to be more toned, There is no such thing as toning a muscle. There is no such thing as changing the shape deliberately of a muscle. There is such a thing as increasing your muscle mass and growing the muscle. Growing the muscle makes you look more toned because you've got a bigger muscle. So anybody who thinks they don't want to build muscle is incorrect. If you want to look more, even if it's just for aesthetics, you need to build muscle, okay? Because that is what makes you look more toned. So, building muscle just becomes even more important. We tend to maintain our muscle mass for, to a certain extent in our earlier years. But yeah, once we hit our 40s, we're like, we need to do that. We need to do that if we want to stay strong and we want to move with ease and we want to look good and we want to, keep eating the same, because if we keep eating the same and losing muscle, we're just going to put weight on. So if you want to keep eating what you're eating right now, then build some muscle for sure.
And that's probably the best. Like, that is definitely something to just note down or like pinpoint, bookmark that bit. Like that's a good enough reason for me. And I'm like, right, I like my food. I like a lot of it. So let's build muscle.
Totally. So building that muscle becomes, like I say, even more important. But, there are other things as well that we may neglect when we're younger. I've already talked about stress. So the more relaxing activities, your yoga and your Pilates and or even just doing meditation and things like that are really important. So moving your body so that you've got good mobility, so that you've got suppleness, so that you are kind of down training your nervous system as well. Because, the fact is that a weight session is going to release some cortisol. It just is. Less, it's going to probably be shorter. It's going to be less so than if you are just going for a long steady state run, but you are going to release a little bit of it. Whereas if you're doing things like yoga, you're going to be calming the system. There's going to be a lot less of that going on. And it's really important to balance everything out, to balance out the stress, because we become less resilient to it as we get older, to reduce inflammation, because again, we could become less resilient to that as we get older. And, just for our mental and emotional health as well, I think we need to be doing that stuff. And, I will hold my hand up and say I'm not always amazing at that. I do meditation. The yoga I am working on, because I am one of those people that I like to get in and sweat.
Yeah.
The other stuff sort of does fall by the wayside a little bit, but I'm working on it because I'm 45 and I need to. Having that variety, having the cardio, the long steady state cardio, plus the resistance training, plus some of the down training, I think is absolutely vital. It really is.
Really, really good tips. And I think it's really interesting when you were talking, I was like, this is definitely linked in with identity. Certainly for me, I've always been a cardio person. Like, I did an ultra marathon when I was like 2019, so 37. I barely ran after that because I was like, well, that nearly killed me. That was a very long run. That's probably me done for my life. But when I joined back at the gym after all the lockdowns, stopped, I would automatically go and book onto spin classes because I used to love spin classes. So it's really interesting that for me, my mindset was locked on, no, this is what you do. This is what you love. I freaking hated them. I've been doing them for months, and I would detest every single second of that 45 minutes. And it would be horrible, just a horrible 45 minutes of my life. And I was like, it took me a really long time to realize, I'm like, I don't like this anymore. And actually, it's not serving me anymore because I'm not getting the results I want. I actually need to take a completely different approach to this. So now my time on the bike is limited to 10 minutes. And I'm like, yep, great. That's enough. Take me to the weight section. So I can imagine, like I said, that's my lived experience of my identity of someone who's always done a lot of cardio. But I suppose perhaps, do you have women that come to you who are like, well, I just don't exercise. I don't like the gym. That kind of belief of I'm not someone that exercises, lift weights. Do you come across that much?
Oh God, yeah, all the time. And I have a variety of different things. I suppose people come to me saying, they will come to me say, oh, I'm just not, I've just never really been into my fitness, or I just don't like exercise. Or the other thing I get is, oh, well, I need I need a specific class to go to keep me motivated. I can't motivate myself. I'm rubbish at motivating myself. Oh God, I hear that over and over again. I'm like, you're not, you just told yourself you can't motivate yourself. It's not true. So I get an awful lot of that. Like it's going back to that, like those limiting beliefs, isn't it? Like, what do we believe to be true will become true. And so if you tell yourself over and over again, I hate exercise, then exercise is going to feel hard. If you tell yourself over and over again, well, I'm just rubbish at motivating myself, then you're never going to get yourself motivated. You're never going to do the things that you need to do to get yourself motivated to maybe do a workout at home. And often in those cases, it ends up being counterproductive because people say to me, oh no, I need a class to commit to go. But then of course, out come the excuses of, oh, well, I couldn't go this week because my husband wasn't home from work, or I couldn't go this week because I was ill, or I couldn't go this week because. And so it's not having the class to go to a lot of the time. It is that you, for some reason, you don't want to exercise. For some reason, you find it hard. For some reason, you are, you're trying to keep yourself in the same place. And it is that whole, monkey mind of our brains will do everything in their power to keep us doing the same things. We might say to ourselves externally, oh gosh, yes, I really want to exercise. But what your brain is doing is it's going, but I don't know the outcome of that. This is unpredictable. I don't like this because I don't do this normally. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it really hard for you to create this new habit because I don't want to do it. I want to be able to predict the outcome of your actions. And I can't predict the outcome of this because it's new to me. And so our monkey minds come in and they make excuses for us. And so, the class doesn't happen either. And, so we just go round and round and round in circles, telling ourselves, I can't do it because I'm rubbish. I can't do it because I'm unmotivated. I can't do it because. So what I'll always get people to do is to start reframing it almost. So if your story has always been, I'm just not one of those fit types, then how about you reframe it to, do you know what? It's really important to me that I do include more exercise or more activity and movement into my life. So I'm going to spend some time having fun, exploring what I'm going to enjoy and finding there is something out there that I'm going to enjoy, and I think it's reframing that in that way. How can we reframe it from this like limiting thing to, well, what could make me go out there and try that thing and getting over those kind of hurdles by doing that and giving yourself the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting what you said about sort of motivation and that belief system, because, when I had my children, like I said, I've always enjoyed exercise, but once I had my children, especially after my first son, I all of a sudden got this irrational thought process of, oh my God, I've got to exercise so that I don't get ill, so that I don't die. I literally went into this like, oh my God, I've got children now. I have to live for at least another 50 years. I have to stay healthy. And it literally, I would go for a run being like, what else can I do to make sure I don't get cancer? Like, it was insane. But it got my butt out the door because I was like, I've got to be motivated. And that waned after a while. I, came to my senses. I was like, okay, this is probably not the healthiest motivation for me. But that, very much was like, I want to stay healthy. So actually I didn't, at that point, even after having kids, I actually didn't care what I looked like in the mirror. I was exercising purely because I was like, I want to make sure I'm healthy and strong and I live a really long time because I've got kids now. And I suppose do you help your clients, or do you find that they need to find that other motivation because they're not going to see the results instantly? How can you help them find that bit of motivation?
So funnily enough, I was writing my newsletter this morning and it was all about exactly the subject, about motivation and about the myth of motivation. And my take on it is that we spend a lot of our lives thinking, I'll wait until I feel motivated, right? It's this sort of backwards thinking of, when I've lost the weight, I will feel confident. Same with motivation. We're like, I'll wait until I'm motivated and then I'll do it. And then we lose motivation. Oh, I wasn't feeling very motivated, so I didn't do the exercise. I'm waiting to get motivated again. So we spend our lives like waiting for motivation to hit. And motivation is like really fickle, isn't it? You know, sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't. And again, I think we also, a lot of us have this story of, we will look at people who do exercise regularly, who do work out regularly, and we'll go, oh, well, they're just lucky that they're really motivated. And I know people say that about me. Oh, you're just so lucky that you're so motivated and you love exercise. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I will wake up a lot of the time and be like, oh, can't be bothered to do a workout today. Don't want to do a workout. Want to lie on the sofa and watch that thing on Netflix. I don't want to do a workout. I'd be like, oh, maybe I should just do it tomorrow, because like today is like really busy and, you know, I've got all these other things to do. I better get those out of the way before I do my exercise. So these thoughts go through my head all the time, right? I don't always fit. I do not like go, yeah. Oh, I get to do a workout. I'm so excited. I'm like, come on, love, do it. And, you know, so I am going through those things. I think that the difference is that the people who appear motivated are just doing things slightly differently. So yes, they do have something that maybe you don't have at the moment, but it is not something that is natural. It is not something that they're just lucky to have. It's none of that. It's just because they take certain actions consistently. So, you know, they will know that motivation comes and goes, and they're okay with that. Rather than expecting to always feel motivated, they go, well, sometimes I'm motivated and sometimes I'm not. And that's quite all right. I think the second thing they do is they know that sometimes it's going to be hard. And sometimes they're going to have to do things that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're going to be pissed off that they have to do that thing. And, you know, it's so they're going to have those feelings of, I don't want to do this. I do not want to do this. But they just roll with it and they just go, well, that's fine. But, you know, let's look at the bigger picture here. What is it that I want to get out of this? And they just get on and do it. I think the other thing is that they, rather than wait for motivation, they work on habits. You know, I don't exercise because I'm motivated or naturally motivated. I exercise because I have created the habit of exercise, because I've sometimes made myself go and do it when I don't feel like it. I've sometimes made myself go and do it when I'm too busy. I've sometimes made myself go and do it when I'm stressed and it's the last thing that I want to do. And so I have pushed myself enough through those times to get to that place, because I understand that I'm not always going to feel motivated, and that's okay. And, you know, that's why I've been exercising regularly for the last 20 plus years, not because I'm special or different to you or more motivated than you or have some natural power. It's because I just recognize that sometimes I just have to do it. Like, maybe I'm bloody minded, I don't know, but it's kind of, it's the same as in business, right? So I've been running this business for over 9 years, and there are plenty of times when things haven't been working, or it's felt so ridiculously stressed out and busy that I've just said to my husband, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to give this up. I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mum. I'm going to stay at home and blah. And then the next day I'll go, no, because I'll be bored. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give up everything I've worked for. And so sometimes I get up and I sit at my desk, and I don't want to sit at my desk, and I don't want to do the thing that I've got to do that day. And I don't want to be consistent with my social media because the algorithm's rubbish and I never get any, you know, and I'm not getting the likes that I want to at the moment, whatever. But I know that I have a successful business because I am bloody minded about it, and because I do force myself to do those things when I don't particularly want to do them, or on days when I'm not particularly believing in them, even when I'm thinking it's making no difference, what's the point? Yeah. But I show up and I do it. And it's the same with exercise as well. And I think too often we are sitting there waiting for motivation to hit. And actually motivation comes from doing. Like, if you do something, you will become more motivated to do more of it. So stop waiting for that. Just get on and do it, even if you don't feel like it, because that in and of itself is going to build the motivation to keep going, and eventually to build the habit so that you just do it regardless anyway, just like you might do in your own business, you know?
Yeah. And I love the fact that you tied it back with business, because when you were talking, I was like, yeah, that's exactly the same in business, isn't it? Because, you know, and I think some of the simplest things, and you said, you know, once you start doing it, for me, you know, exactly the same, completely human. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, I got to do that email marketing, or I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And once I've opened the laptop and I'm in it, I'm like, all right, it's all fine now. Once you get that momentum going.
Yeah. You've got to get momentum. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the simplest things that I've found is if I know I'm going to go to the gym straight after the school drop off, I get up and I get straight into my gym clothes, have my shower, get into my gym clothes. And then I'm already in that mindset of like, I'm going to the gym. Yeah. And, if I went back and thought, I'll come back and have some breakfast and do a couple of things and then I'll go, I would never go to the gym because I'm like, the washing up is more important right now. So there's those really simple steps. Honestly, we could talk for hours. There's so many areas we want to go in, but I really, really encourage everyone listening to listen to your podcast and check out your work, because honestly, Alix, when I first stumbled across your podcast, when we met in that community, the biggest sense I had was this big weight being lifted off my shoulders. I was like, I don't have to look like all these 20-year-olds on Instagram with the peachy bum, and I don't have to look like, all these legging models, and I don't have to work out really, really hard like I did in my 20s. And I'm like, I don't know why I couldn't have given myself permission for that, but she has, and that's great. I'll take it.
Yeah, do you know what? That is the feedback that I always get from people. Like, honestly, it was just like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to diet anymore. Hooray. It's like it. Yeah, people are like, it's been really freeing listening to your podcast, like motivating, but freeing as well. Just like letting go of all of this like weight that we're carrying around. So yeah, do you know what? When I started the podcast, I didn't start it specifically to do that. Like, I started it to make women feel better and to help them along the journey and to make them realize they didn't have to do all the things that they think they've got to do to look after themselves, and that it could be easier and it could feel better. That was why I started that podcast. But it's had this kind of this amazing consequence of making people feel like they have just shed all of this weight of expectations over the years, and just they've been able to feel better in where they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, your podcast I went to the other day, because I did find, and this is where it's interesting. I'm someone who's very aware of this, obviously in the coaching industry and all that kind of stuff. I'm very aware of how my mind works, very aware of my relationship with my looks and my figure and my fitness and all that kind of stuff. And even I found myself caught by a Facebook ad for, I won't advertise a thing, but it was something, but basically it was like, shred your middle. I'm like, I want to shred my middle. That sounds amazing. And before I knew it, I was stood in the kitchen for at least 10 minutes watching this video, and I'm like, move away from the phone. And I put on one of your episodes. I think it was the episode about working out in the seasons, like working with the seasons. I was like, and breathe. Okay, it's fine. It's so easy to get caught in, especially on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah. If you're into fitness, or if you even search for it once, boom, that's it. The algorithm goes, here's all these different diets, and they're going to give you this and they're going to give you that. And it's just so tempting to kind of go, ooh. Well,
and you see, that's something I've done over the last couple of years as well. So I have like really, what's the word these days? Curated my feed. That's what they say, isn't it? So yes, I used to see a lot of that. I don't see anything to do with diets anymore, or getting skinny. I see, and so my, I kind of always think my impression of how the world is changing is probably very different to how it is from most people, because I have very specifically and deliberately made sure that what I see on social media reflects the things that I want to see, and the things that make me feel good, and the things that I feel to be helpful and reasonable, and going against that whole ridiculous diet culture thing. And I've done that by deliberately unfollowing people who are 25, prancing around in bikinis, doing cartwheels on the beach and just looking amazingly thin and skinny. And because I recognized that I would look at that and I'd be like, oh God, I should look like that. She's a fitness professional. I should look like that. I'm like, I don't need that. I'm 45. I don't need that anymore. Like, I need different stuff. So I have made sure that I follow people on my feed who have the same kind of attitudes as me, and who are pushing that same message out into the world. And so my view of things is very, part of the reason that my view is as it is because I have deliberately done that for myself. So if you are getting those things pop up, unfollow it. Tell Instagram, Facebook, you don't want to see content like that. Tell them you do not want to see diets. Tell them you don't want to be pushed this thing in your face, and tell them what you do want to see, which is, people who are, because believe me, there are a lot of people, and a growing number of people who are, providing a much more positive message, a much more nurturing message, a much more realistic message about, how we are supposed to look, et cetera, et cetera. So it can be done, but it takes a little while to get the message across to Facebook and Instagram that is what you want to see instead.
Yeah, but do you know what? That even if the listeners take that first tip, because I did exactly the same of just unfollowing all these people, because I did fall into the trap of I was just purely curious about the exercises they were doing. I was like, that's a new one that I can try. But you do that, little monkey mind goes, yeah, but you don't look like that. And I'm like, I should look like that. And I'm like, the minute the word should comes in, I'm like, delete. So that's really good advice, just to unfollow those ones that are not serving. And I highly recommend you all subscribe and find Alix's podcast as well. Where else can they find all the information about your programs and courses and how to work with you?
So if you just go to chickfit.co.uk, you can find out more about me, and you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Alix ChickFit, and it's ALIX ChickFit. You can come and follow me over there and find out more about the podcast and what I do.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation, and I really hope everyone listening has had that same that kind of weight lifted off their shoulders. They're like, it's okay to be, once we get a little bit older, to do things a bit differently. So I hope everyone's got some really good tips out of that. Alix, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, any resources and links mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would be so grateful if you would kindly share, subscribe, and leave a positive review so that the podcast can help and reach as many people as possible. Thank you again for listening. Have a gorgeous day, and I'll see you in the next episode.